something like this. Back in 2002, there was a newspaper article in a local paper stating that the Liberty Bell Center was going to move from where it was 5th and Market, a half block east, a half block west, to 6th and Market. We in the black community said interesting, but not really relevant to black folks. Second thing we found out in that same newspaper article, remember 2002, that the new site Liberty Bell from 5th to 6th is where America's first White House stood. Again, we say in the black community interesting, but not really relevant to black folks. But the third thing we found out, which was extremely telling, is that, now remember, first move from 5th to 6th. Second, 6th Street is where America's first White House stood. But the third thing we found out is that George Washington, the first president of the United States of America, held black men, black women, and black children in a state of slavery right here in Philadelphia. I went to Masterman, I went to college, I went to law school, and never heard anything about that. So once we found this stuff, we didn't just get angry, we got even by fighting and pushing and struggling. And like Ali said in the beginning, that constant, but most important, relentless pushing and fighting and struggling forced the federal government to do something it had never done before, not once. On Wednesday, December 15, 2010, was the grand opening of the President's House / Slavery Memorial at 6th and Market. Why is that historic? This is why. That site, 6th and Market, is the first, I repeat, first slavery memorial on federal property in the history of the United States of America. A.T.A.C, give yourselves a major round of applause for that. That has never happened before. And not only is it important because that site is there, but it's important because it's on the grounds of the Liberty Bell Center. And that's important for two reasons. And Ali just let me know I have about 37 seconds left, so I'll wrap this up quickly. It's important for two reasons. One, it's on the grounds of the Liberty Bell Center. That means that people who come to America, who come to Pennsylvania, who come to Philadelphia, they don't give a damn about slavery. But when they get there and see the Liberty Bell, they get slapped in the face with it. This could have been somewhere in some federal park in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and nobody would ever see it. But it's in Pennsylvania, it's in Philadelphia, it's at the Liberty Bell Center. And I wrap it up by saying the second thing, which is why it's so important. If you go to this site, the Liberty Bell Center, 6th and Market, where it stands now, on that corner, back in 1790, just 5 feet away from the major entrance, the main entrance, Liberty Bell Center, is where the slave quarters stood. Now think about that. George Washington had designs for the slave quarters at that 6th and Market Street area. So when you go there today, a mere 5 feet, just 5 feet from the main entrance to the new Liberty Bell Center is where the slave quarters stood. What does that mean? That means as you enter this heaven of liberty, the Liberty Bell Center, you literally have to cross the hell of slavery to get inside. That is so important, that site, that event. But I got to wrap this up by saying something that's really important in the last 20 seconds. It's this. Our organization is called ATAC, Avenging the Ancestor Coalition. Avenge and ancestors, the two key words there. I came up here to talk about ATAC and what we did at 6th and Market, but the ancestors really told me, told me to relay this to you. If it's about avenging the ancestors, it's the first Africans, the first humans on this planet, 200,000 years ago, Nile Valley region of East Africa, and then the 316 that George Washington enslaved in Mount Vernon, Virginia, and the 9 of that 316 that he brought here. All of those Africans told me to tell you that they insist, they require, they demand that you avenge Trayvon Martin. Because that's their son, that's their grandson, that's their great-grandson. And you can avenge him not just by being angry, but by fighting and protesting and demonstrating. Imagine it wasn't Trayvon Martin. Imagine it was your 17-year-old son, grandson, nephew, neighbor. Avenge him. Thank you, Ali.